So there's a global pandemic. A virus is still sweeping across our world, and society has changed. Why is this happening? Is someone going to do something about it? What would you do if a store had a no mask policy? If you haven't considered these questions yet, you soon will. And we will be here with you, your personal guides on this journey, this descent into chaos. Thank you for joining us on Staring at Goats.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Staring at Goats, your number one source of information. 20% of dentists agree that this is the best place to learn about COVID. We're happy to have you here. I'm your host, Stephen, joined as always by Jacob, who actually spouts actual statistics, and Travis, who just flipping knows stuff and comes from Michigan, where things are just basically upside down. So it's good to have everybody here. Again, for another episode of the show that none of us want to keep doing, but feel compelled to keep this ball rolling, keep the pandemic entertaining for everyone, despite our sense of dread and our staring into the void, wondering who's next. Boy, oh boy, here we are. Guys, how are y'all tonight? Jacob, what's up? How are you?
60% of dentists agree that 20% of the facts coming from this show are correct.
That's a good point. Yeah. Travis, how's Michigan? How's Michigan? Good?
Not bad. We managed to avoid all the nasty snowstorms. So
good.
At least here.
Good. No bringing out the snowblower today.
Nope.
Not yet.
And that's an important thing. Well,
how are you, Stephen?
Whoa, how am I? I'm fine. You know what? Let's take a minute.
F-I-N-E, fine.
You know it. All right. Let's get into it. Let's just get into it, because I got a bone to pick. I'm not one
You're
for
mad
picking.
As hell?
Oh, Jacob.
I'm as mad as hell.
You know what really grinds my gears?
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
HOAs can suck my butt. I'm so sick. Look, I have an HOA, and this HOA does not, I have praised them. I have told the people, my HOA stays out of my way. My HOA lets me live my life. I give them $75 a quarter, and they upkeep the tennis court, and they make sure the greenway doesn't have, oil slicks on it, ready to destroy anyone who decides to run that morning. They take care of me. Well, today, all of that changes, because the HOA decided that today, in the middle of a pandemic, they would send me a note. And that note would say, I hope you're doing well. It was noted that you have kids' play equipment in your front yard that needs to be moved to the back. If you could please move it to the back, that would be great. Thank you. And I said, well, you can shove that right up your butt, because I am locked inside my house with my child and nowhere to go in the middle of a pandemic. And if I want to have a piece of playground, if I want to build a fortress in my front yard to keep myself sane and my family from eating other people in the neighborhood, I'm going to do it. I am going to put whatever I want out there. I'm bound to put a water slide and a swimming pool out there in February just to shove it right up there, all collective anuses, because it's not fair. It's not okay to send somebody a note in a pandemic when that pandemic is condemning me to my house to tell me what I should do in my neighborhood or in my house. I have done everything you've asked of me, HOA. I have been a good citizen of this neighborhood. I don't park an old Chevy out there on blocks with the hood open for 6 months. No, I don't keep a boat out in my driveway for the better part of 6 years without using it. No, I just put a little swing hanging from a tree in my yard. Just a little swing. It ain't even a big swing, y'all. It's not one of those big old monstrosities with a bench that swings back and forth and like 3 swings and a slide. It's that thing Jacob's pointing at. A little kid's blue swing has been hanging from a tree limb, and they told me my kid's playground equipment needs to be moved to my backyard, where I don't have a limb that hangs low enough for it. So, no, I will not be relocating my swing set until I see every other house in this neighborhood start cutting their grass, doing their swing sets, and taking care of their mailbox like we're called to in our HOA terms. If they're not going to hold everybody to it, they can't hold me to it. I'm rebelling, baby. Suck it.
You rebel, Steven.
Go
You
die
let
in a
'em have it.
fire.
Absolutely.
You bunch of buttholes. I'm done with him. That felt
I
better.
still can't believe. So I know I've seen that swing for 5 years. You've had it
I have
in
not
your
moved it.
front yard for 5 years.
Yeah, it's been there. Nobody's
They haven't
complained.
said a word.
No one's
So
ever said
what you
anything.
do is you don't do a thing. And
Yep.
in 5 years, you send them a note saying, I understand you would like this moved. That's it. You just acknowledge it in 5 years. It took them
Right.
5 years to acknowledge it was there.
Yeah.
You take 5 years to acknowledge the letter.
Somebody on this bloody HOA board, we had voting recently to get new board members or to people could get on the board. I think they added some board members who are sticklers and punks. And I'm going to find out who they are. I'm going to write them a strongly worded letter and say, don't you come around here in the middle of COVID-19 and tell me I can't have something in my yard that I need for my sanity.
I think I may actually clip the front half of the show and actually play it for your HOA board.
That would be
I may
fine.
find out when their next meeting is, play it for them, and tell them they can all shove it up their butts. I'll do it for you, Steven, so that you don't have to get your hands dirty. I don't mind getting my hands dirty.
I pay
I will make
$75
the
a
road
quarter to
trip
be
down
angry
to
at
do
them.
that.
Will you come down to join me at the HOA meeting and be like, I would like to bring to order this problem that I have. You emailing me in the middle of a pandemic to tell me that my house can't be fun in the front yard.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just stand behind you, arms crossed, and glower.
Yeah,
I'll be your muscle.
you'll be my
This is-
muscle.
This is my representative.
I need Hammer Dwarf and you to just be standing behind me with your beards and your tallness.
Perfect. Yes,
Come at
that
me.
will work. Oh,
Yeah.
HOAs. HOAs can just get in the bin. I don't
That's right.
get it, and I don't understand how anything they say is enforceable anyway. I really don't.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, I get some things. A lot of places are like luxury neighborhoods where the people in the neighborhood would like it to be enforced grass at 2 inches in mailboxes or whatever the devil. This ain't that kind of neighborhood. It never has been. Don't try to make it that neighborhood. It's a middle-class neighborhood in Apex. It doesn't need to be treated like McGregor Downs, which is like $700,000 houses you buy and drive around your stupid Tesla and your Porsche. This is for people with like a Toyota Camry. We live in a neighborhood that's not designated as luxury. Though I do find it to be quite nice as it has a library and a community pool. Which we have to pay to get to. They don't actually give you access to the pool as part of the HOA. You pay separately because it's a private pool. So let that sink in for a second. That's why I only pay $75 a quarter, which everybody goes, what? Mine's like $250 a month. I'm like, well, that's bad. You should move. That's
Yes.
illegal. That's downright theft. Get out of there.
I was telling Steven this earlier, but whenever we were purchasing our house a few years back here, we were looking for homes that specifically did not have an HOA because
Mhm.
we do not want to be beholden to somebody else to tell us exactly how we can and cannot live our lives in our home. So we were looking for places that did not have it. Luckily, we found a place here that we do not have an HOA. We do have a $7 a year commitment to. It's not an HOA, but it's like a community fund where they give all the money to feed the lights, the street lights. But that's not-
Community chest.
That works. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did the same thing when I was buying my house. I specifically tried to avoid anywhere that had an HOA. Like that was one of the first questions I would ask my realtors. All right, so is there an HOA in this neighborhood? No, good. Let's go take a look.
Not even gonna look at the house if it has it.
The bad news,
It better be a damn nice house for me to look at.
there's so many. They're so normal now, though. Everybody just accepts them. Any new neighborhood has an HOA. And this one, luckily, the HOA is, like I said, they've been really, I've never got a note from them. My grass has been stupid. The yards around here, not all of them are pristine. The mailboxes, some of them are falling apart. Our HOA doesn't police anything. And I think somebody got on that board that wants them to do that. And that person needs to find I need to know who they are so next round of voting I can get rid of them. Because they are not helping us. They're just fussing. That's just fussing. That's not doing anything to make the neighborhood better. It's just anonymous fussing.
So, Stephen, do you remember the in-laws whenever right before they moved in? So they bought the house that they live in April,
Oh yeah.
and they didn't move in until November.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were the ones who were doing all the upkeep of the yard, and it would go maybe a week or 2 weeks sometimes in the summer where we hadn't done it, especially if we were on vacation or we went up to West Virginia to see the in-laws. It was before they had moved down here, so sometimes the grass would get a little bit longer than maybe it should. There was one time where the grass was not long; we just had not weed eated the
Yeah.
sides, and it was along the sidewalk and along the driveway. Just the grass was not long in the slightest, but it had just rolled over onto the sidewalk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We got a letter basically saying you will be fined if you do not take care of this within a week for every day that it is not being taken care of. And
Yeah.
I about lost it. Lost it.
Yeah,
I
let
mean,
me write a letter to
HOAs,
them saying I stepped on dog crap walking down the sidewalk at night. Maybe they should hunt down that person and tell
Yeah.
them to do something. I was
I
actually
could
impacted.
only live in a neighborhood with an HOA that would allow me to reenact the moment from the X-Files episode. I don't know if either of you remember this or not. I just remember it because it was like this like Stepford Wives type neighborhood thing going on, and Mulder, they move in and they've got super strict HOA rules, and there's just this shot, it's a low angle shot, and Mulder walks out with a pink flamingo, sticks it in the front yard, and then just looks out and says, "Bring it on." And I just want to do that. I would do that in an HOA, and then I'd move out the next week.
Yes. 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 Anyway, I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but it was pandemic related and annoying to me, and I needed to get it out, and I feel better now, and I can't wait till the
Good.
next HOA meeting, which I get to go to, and tell them to put it up their rear ends.
I'll be there for you, Stephen.
Thanks.
I'll be there in spirit.
I appreciate that. Jacob, what do you got to hopefully lift me out of this terrible hole I'm in?
School reopenings.
Oh,
So
good.
our
Great.
yes.
That must mean COVID's gone. Thanks for the
No,
positive
no, no,
news.
no, no.
Show's over, everybody.
That's right. But I will tell you this: the CDC has collected data for about the last 8 months on places that have had schools open, and more specifically, I think a lot of their data came from Wisconsin, a few locations in North Carolina, a few. I mean, there were a few everywhere. But they released two studies. The first study basically says that look, as long as the kids are wearing masks, as long as they're social distancing, and as long as the air handling system within the school has been upgraded and updated, and that they constantly ventilate the place, so keep the windows open and keep fans going and etc., that they're not seeing a huge rate of transmission in these schools. And so the governor actually quoted that today, saying the CDC came out and outlined that if schools are going to reopen, here are the guidelines. You got to wear masks. You've got to update your ventilation systems. You've got to try to maintain social distancing, both in the classroom and in places like the cafeteria and other places. Um, but and keep the areas well ventilated, which I started thinking about, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe we can really start working on this, because if the data supports it, let's give it a whirl. Then I started thinking, we live in a nicer area of North Carolina, relatively speaking. It's not a urban area, but it's kind of that middle class suburban area, from Raleigh, and it's not a rural area, that's for sure. But there's a lot of schools that have never had upgrades to their HVAC system ever. And are we supposed to try to get them upgrades before we reopen their schools? Are we expecting the kids to be in a school that has windows open and fans blowing over top of them when it's 25 degrees outside? I don't know about all that. I mean, I get the masks. I understand the social distancing component of it. And I understand that some kids are really good. I mean, hell, look at Sam. Sam's done a great job of staying away from people and really trying to social distance, even whenever he's interacting with folks. So I think it's possible, um, but I think there are other kind of logistical issues that we're going to have to try to face by reopening some of these schools, especially in the near term. I think in the longer term, we really should have been addressing these over the last 9 months when the schools have been closed, but we haven't done that. So now we're back up square one, and we're going, what do we do? So
Yeah, and we had data to support ventilation months and months and months and months ago. The school we were going to send Sam to before they even opened for fall, they upfitted their HVAC to HEPA filters and all the fancy pants blower ventilation whatnots. But they had like what do you call it? I guess the what?
UV filters.
Well,
Sets
yeah,
and
they had all that. I was looking for the alumni fund. That people
Oh,
who had left the school
the
had donated.
endowment.
Yes,
They've got
they
the
had
endowments.
people had generously donated to this school so that they could do it. They didn't have to worry about the public budget, like a lot of the public schools have. And so they were like, yeah, we did all this. That's why we have that money, so we can make moves like this when we have to. And I was like, well, that's great. But yeah, a lot of these schools, man, I don't even know if the high school that just got rebuilt 2 years ago, which was only able to be used for like half a year, before it couldn't be used. Brand new. It's like massive. I don't know that they got HVAC or HEPA filter level filters in there. We didn't need to do this.
Yeah.
This is new. No one was expecting the need for HEPA filters as an average.
Yeah.
But
a
I
good
don't
one.
know. I think
Yeah,
that
I mean, we'll see what happens.
if the data
But
supports it, it's hard to argue against it. You just got to
Yeah.
make sure that the
Yeah.
places you are going, you're not blanketing and saying the whole county can open. You're just going, that school is cleared. They can open.
Well, and I think the other thing we need to use the data for is to be wise with the data. We don't need to say, well, the data supports it, so let's go reopen the schools and not actually follow what the school system and the papers actually said to do. Let's be intellectually honest about what we want to try to do, which is reopen schools using this specific technique such that nobody gets sick. If you just go, oh, yeah, see, we can reopen because data says so, but not actually do what the data supports, then that's where we have a problem. So I think as long as we maintain that intellectual honesty, I think we'll be okay.
People wouldn't do that, would they? They wouldn't take advantage of like the letter of the law
Nope.
and be like,
Nope.
hey,
Of
they
course
wouldn't.
not.
No,
They would not, Stephen. I've got full faith in our friends everywhere.
Integrity.
Anyway, COVID arm.
Yeah.
So I did get a couple of questions this week about what's called COVID arm, and that's happens a lot with the Moderna vaccine. I haven't really heard it very much with the Pfizer one, but I know I've heard it at least twice with the Moderna one. And essentially, what it is a couple of days after your shot, you get this redness. And maybe even some soreness is associated with it, but it's kind of like this rash that starts forming on your arm. And doctors have basically said, and the experts have basically said, well, it's just your body is reacting to your immune system's kicking in, and your body's reacting to its foreign entity there, and it's actually generating the antibodies, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and that's just a byproduct of that. So don't get too worried if you get the vaccine and you have what's called COVID arm, which is you see some rashy spots on your arm near where the vaccine was given. It doesn't have to be exactly where the jab was; it could be anywhere on your arm. I think the one person that I'm thinking of had it up and down the arm, probably up to about 6 to 8 inches away. So it can happen, but you won't feel any pain. It probably won't be too itchy. It might be a little bit itchy, but yeah, it's definitely a side effect. It's definitely a thing. But if that's the worst you've got to deal with, or if that's the worst I have to deal with, then sign me up, baby.
I'm actually glad you talked about this because my mom told me today she got her second shot, and that's exactly what happened. She has, she said her shot location was a lot more red this time, and she had redness up and down her arm. She said the second shot side effects post shot were worse.
Yeah.
But
Which, by the way, that's been documented. I think
Yeah.
a lot of folks are experiencing that exact thing.
Yeah, so the first one she was fatigued but felt fine. The second one, she said she had a lot more soreness in her arm than the first one, and she ended up taking Tylenol, like a couple Tylenol, and ended up having an allergic reaction to that for like a day. So that didn't help. But she's like, I did that to myself. Well, she was taking it to keep the pain away routinely, and then I guess it was just a little more than she needed.
Yeah.
So she's like, whoopsie.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so then she's got the COVID arm, but other than that, you know, she's been doing fine. But I think it's important to note that the second one's going to suck. I think you could just blanket statement that at this point from everyone I've heard, and be pretty safe.
Yeah, Ashley and I were actually on a walk a couple of nights ago, and we always see one of our neighbors. He's a buddy that always stops and talks about Tater Tot, and he's just very interactive, and he wants to be a part of the guy of Tater Tot's life, which is cool. He works over at Duke, and he's actually a healthcare worker at Duke, and they got their second shot. And as they were getting their second shot, they just told all of their employees, just don't come in the second day.
Wow.
Just go ahead and plan to take the day off. It's going to be a little bit worse. Go ahead and expect it. Go ahead and sign up to switch shifts or change shifts and move on.
That's good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really cool. They know enough to go, y'all are going to be about useless anyway, so stay home, get better. That's good news.
I like
That's
that.
good. Yeah, thanks for all that info, Jacob. That was quite an informative how you doing. So speaking of how you doing, Travis.
So I mentioned we didn't get a bunch of snow, but a lot of places did. Somehow it just went around Michigan, which I don't complain about at all. Because I don't want to have to. I don't leave the house much, but I actually had to this past weekend. So if we had gotten a bunch of snow, it would have been annoying. No, I mean it's been a pretty quiet week, except anyone seeing the video can tell my hair is now royal purple.
It's a
love
good purple.
It.
It's
It
like
is
a
now-
deep purple. It's
It
not
is.
like that little light.
Smoke on the water.
I'm waiting to see how this fades, because I have heard that purple hair or purple coloring fades probably the fastest. So
Mm.
we'll see. But that was pretty much it. It's this past year I've started doing that with my hair more. I've had it green, I've had it blue, now purple. I've got a little bit of all those left, so who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Rainbow.
Yeah.
It might. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, it's been a pretty quiet week, which I don't mind so much.
Yeah.
I did start watching Lovecraft Country on HBO Max.
Oh.
Whew, boy, that's a rough one.
Yeah.
I'll
I've
tell you
heard
right
that.
now. It's not an easy thing to watch, but
But entertaining enough that you get something out of it, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't watch it. Why torture yourself?
oh yeah, no, it's definitely got a lot going on.
Yeah.
The rough part of it is just it's set in the 1940s, 1950s, early 1960s, and in Chicago, and there's a lot of racial tension, and so that's the tough part to watch.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a really well put together show.
Yeah, I remember watching
Yeah.
some of that with Steph, but didn't we couldn't get into it. The vibe, I don't think it was what we were looking for. We've been trucking through The Stand on CBS
Well,
All
Steven,
Access.
did it have pornography in it?
It not from where we got to. There was no porn yet.
That was the problem.
Okay, just it is an HBO show. You expect there will be gratuitous nudity.
Yeah. And of course, your wife, she has to watch shows to have pornography in
Right,
them.
that's it. Because she's all about the Bridgerton, and she watched some other show that had tons of nudity in it.
Her and
Yeah.
Stephanie, or her and Ashley were watching. What was that dancing show? Either on Netflix or HBO Max.
Fancy Feet or so. What is it called?
I don't know
Little
what it
tiny
was, but it
things.
was-
Tiny little tiny dancer. That's it.
Tiny
Hold me
Dancer,
closer,
Tony
tiny
Danza.
Tony Danza. Hold me closer, Tony Danza.
Speaking of little things, I watched that this week. The Remy Malek.
Remy
Rami
Malek?
Denzel Washington
yeah,
and
Denzel.
Jared
Oh
Leto.
yeah. Was that good?
That's
I'll
on
watch
HBO
anything with
Max.
Denzel in it. I will watch anything with Denzel in
Yeah.
it. Was he good?
I watched that.
He's
this
always
weekend.
good.
It's very suspenseful. It's definitely got more of a dark undertone to it. So it's not got this real uplifting vibe, but it's gritty. It's pretty good.
I heard it
Flip
wasn't too bad. I also read an interview with Denzel talking about, because Jared Leto is notoriously a very method actor,
Mhm.
and Denzel is like the opposite end of that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody was like, "How is that like for the two of you to work together?" He's like, "Yeah, we really didn't talk. We would nod from across the set, and that was about it. Because if he had pulled some of that stuff on me, it probably wouldn't have gone so well," type of thing.
You know what
like,
was cool
all right.
about Denzel though? He ended that interview with, "These young guys are good, and we got to step up
yeah.
our game." So he was
yeah.
complimenting them both. But yeah, it was definitely nah. He ain't pulling that with me. I'm playing that game.
Yeah.
Also,
and
method
by
is
far,
code word
Denzel
for.
was-
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was
No, go
just
ahead.
gonna say method acting is just code word for being a real weirdo.
Yeah, basically.
That's all there is
Well,
to it.
Christian Bale went through that phase for a while, right? And
Yeah.
Oh, he still does.
I think
He's
he's
a
still
total
method.
method actor. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, him, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
The famous story of that is he made people carry him around set on my left foot. He refused to walk because his character couldn't walk. Jim Carrey.
Jim
Jim
Carrey
Carrey,
did
yeah.
it.
Jim
He-
Carrey basically was
Andy
Andy
Kaufman,
Kaufman
right?
for the entirety of making Man on the Moon.
Yeah.
The other one, the other one I love of that is Brad Dourif is very much a method actor.
Really?
And
The
he
Chucky
was-
guy?
Yeah,
Was it? Yeah, he did the voice of Chucky.
he did the voice of Chucky, and it was one of the Lord of the Rings specials, and it was Peter Jackson talking about the last day that Brad Dourif was on set as Grima Wormtongue. It got done. He got done filming, and then he slipped back into his natural American accent, and he was like, "I didn't even realize he was from the States."
Oh, wow.
Like, I had no idea because he had
That's
never
impressive.
spoken without his Grima Wormtongue accent the entire time he was there.
Holy crap. Christian
Yeah,
Bale
it's
did that with Batman. In all the interviews he was in, when he was Batman, he used an American accent, even doing the
I had
junkets and
no
stuff.
clue he was Welsh until I saw Reign of Fire.
No, I had no idea that it was not his real accent. Blew my mind. It's like, wait, Christian Bale's not American? Why was he
Yeah.
doing junkets with an American accent? No one does
Exactly.
that. What is wrong with him? I still wonder, but they're great. They're great. Good actors. Good actors all around. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for taking us down that fun rabbit trail. You know, we should do a show about movies. Anyway, let's do some news.
We can transition from COVID to movies after this is over.
Yeah, that's what we turned it into. Let's just talk about post-apocalyptic films. That's what we'll do. So AstraZeneca, the
Write this down.
vaccine they have created can slow the transmission of COVID-19, says an Oxford study. Complete immunity isn't always the only thing that benefits us. Turns out just slowing or stopping community spread is a big win. A new study suggests that even one dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine could help prevent transmission of the disease by as much as 2/3. No patients who have got their first dose experienced severe illness or hospitalization, and the efficacy appeared to actually increase up to 12 weeks from the initial shot. The results of the study, which have not been peer-reviewed, indicate that the UK strategy of delaying the second dose in order to vaccinate the maximum amount of people may actually be a pretty solid strategy. That's just referring to the UK, I guess, is not doing the strict after 1 month after we're going to do that second dose. They're trying to extend that as far as possible so they can get more people on their first dose and then catch everybody up later, which I think is an interesting take, and this data seems to support that, at least with this vaccine. A little follow-up to that. In terms of vaccine news, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine provides strong shield against severe COVID. The Johnson & Johnson one-shot trial has been largely successful. That means one shot, one dose, seeing how that goes. Of 43,000 tested people, it was 66% effective at preventing moderate to severe cases of COVID, 85% of just severe cases, and prevented 100% of hospitalizations and death. Again, great. Flatten that hospital curve. Vaccines are doing a great job at getting things manageable, even for people who didn't get the vaccine. You might be able to find a bed for yourself. Even though the data shows the vaccine to be less effective, quotes, because it's less effective, but it's still hitting a target, of Pfizer and Moderna, the benefits are still strong. The requirement of only one shot, along with its ability to be simply refrigerated for up to a month, is a huge win. Other two have to go in freezers. This one can sit in a fridge for a month. That's a big deal in some of these locations that don't have access to those deep freezers. The Johnson & Johnson study also produced some sobering facts regarding variants. The vaccine was less effective against the South African variant, for instance, reducing the effectiveness to 57%. Regardless, more vaccines allows more opportunities in other countries to get a handle on these variants before they get worse. In addition, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses a more time-tested process for delivery, unlike the mRNA method used by Pfizer and Moderna, which is relatively new. This vaccine uses a modified adenovirus that mimics the COVID-19 virus but cannot replicate in humans, and they use that same technology to fight Ebola. So there's a lot to unpack there. General idea is vaccines are good. They are helping. There are differences, but those differences are still managing the virus in a way that we're not doing with just nothing at all. So I think even Dr. Fauci had suggested that if they got to a vaccine that was 65% effective, he'd be jumping for joy. The fact that Moderna and Pfizer are 95% effective is downright miraculous. It's just it's a big deal, and to think if you discount a virus and say, well, that one's only 70%, so it's no good, that's discounting an awful lot of work and an awful lot of potential for this to go away. So even if that's the only one you can get, flip and get it, because it's gonna make a difference. 70% is more than zero, man.
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, that was a
And
lot.
the good news is they both, I think, use the common cold virus, the adenovirus.
Yeah.
Adenovirus as their host, I believe.
So let me ask you this, just a quick follow-up, but the Johnson & Johnson virus, is that one more likely to be approved for 16 years and younger since it uses a active, well-known method?
Probably not.
Okay.
I still think they're going to need data. The one I'm really intrigued by is the Novavax one. Whenever they get that one actually to a point where they can commercialize that, I have a feeling they're going to really throw that at 16 and under children, because that's the one, the protein subunits, where they basically chop up pieces
Okay.
of the virus and basically give you that protein subunit. Your body responds to that. They use that technology in your DPAP, so all your diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. They use that in Hep B. They use that in there are tons of different vaccines. Which, if you have kids, your first year is nothing but getting vaccine shots, and it's those vaccine shots, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're a little more confident that the Novavax one, and I think the other company that's developing a protein subunit one is Sanofi, but you don't quote me on that. I think it's Novavax and Sanofi. So
Okay. Cool.
those are the two that I'm really holding out hope for kids.
Yeah.
The AstraZeneca one and the J&J one. I think Janssen is the one who actually developed the J&J one. But I think those two. I think they're just going to need to do some testing on that. They'll probably have an easier time than some of the nucleic acid ones, the Moderna and the Pfizer one. But I think it will be fine.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, ma'am. So I'm next. Where are we at here? 22-year-old college student was put in charge of Philadelphia's largest COVID-19 vaccination site. What did he do with them? He took them home and injected his friends.
Yeah. Butthole.
22-year-old Andre Doroshin, who founded one of Philly's largest vaccination clinics, has faced several allegations of misconduct, including taking old vaccines for his friends. A nurse alleges that she saw Andre with a Ziploc bag full of vaccines as he was leaving on Tuesday. Apparently, this guy is an absolute freaking dumpster fire. The organization recently updated the privacy policy to allow them to sell private data, and it was never disclosed that it was planning to become a for-profit business. They were also accused of shutting down the vaccine facilities without notice. I think the city has just lost trust in the group. Andre admitted on the Today Show that he had been taking the vaccine home to use with his friends, though he had no medical qualifications. But he was currently studying neuroscience. So
I just love
he
that
stayed at a Holiday Inn Express the night
the
before.
story had that at the very end. Like, he's currently studying neuroscience. Like, oh, good.
well,
Okay.
that's
yeah.
better.
That helps.
Sure.
If they would have ended that story with he stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, that would have been
Right.
beautiful. So this guy, there's a nice cold place in hell for this guy.
Yeah.
There just is. From my understanding, I read another article about this. Philadelphia actually closed this clinic completely down, like completely shut even the nurses. They didn't put anybody else in charge of it. They just shut it completely down.
Yeah, it was an early I don't guess a win for Philadelphia. They were really putting their money into this place because it was doing great work, or they looked like they were going to do great work. They're setting up clinics all over the city, and it just then a bunch of turds ruined it. I mean, it was probably destined for ruin from the start with the people leading it, clearly. But you do what you can, and you still get burned. Sorry, Philly.
Bummer. Well, it's not any better in Arizona. Arizona store owner drew a gun after his no mask rule sparked an argument with a masked customer. Despite countless studies that have proven that masks limit the spread of COVID-19, store owner Scott Ciccone says his T-Slingers T-shirt shop has a, quote, strict no mask policy. And Everett Depew entered the store wearing a mask to peruse the wares when he was approached by Cercone, who told him to take the mask off. Depew allegedly chest bumped Cercone, at which point Cercone pulled a gun, but he claims it was in self-defense and not because Depew was not wearing a mask. Sure. Depew admits to pushing Cercone because he had a knee-jerk reaction. Neither men believes they'll be charged with a crime. Cercone's Facebook spreads plenty of election conspiracy theories, including a post which states if Biden wins, it's because the election was stolen. This country is going to war.
Yep. Yep.
Was he related to Marjorie Green? No,
Maybe.
no.
Reading this, you just
Cercone?
have
No.
this actually took place back in November. But the court case and everything is going to get hashed out soonly, which I guess is why it was in the news. But yeah, it's just another case of idiots being allowed to do things. In Florida, if you're familiar with the state of Florida, they used to be the weirdest. They used to be the weirdest state in the union, but Michigan has recently overtaken them. But Florida has a law called the 1020 life law. 1020 life means if you pull a gun, 10 years. If you shoot a gun at someone, 20 years. If you kill someone with that gun, you get life. It's a pretty strict gun law. But all I can think is this Arizona man better be happy he's not in Florida, because he'd go to jail for 10 years for pulling a gun on somebody. And it's not even, this isn't even like a stand your ground thing, because like the dude pushed him.
Right.
He didn't come at him with a baseball bat or a crowbar, where like in Texas you can one up the person. Like, oh, well, he hit me with a bat, so I stabbed him with a knife, and then I shot him with a gun. We leapfrogged each other just to see who could do the most damage. That's legal, but no, this was a bad move.
Yeah, okay. There was a no mask policy at this store. So I read this article earlier in the week, and that was the first thing that I read, and that's what stuck with me on this. Listen, if you're dyed in the wool, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't think I should be forced to. Fine, that's fine. Do not open your store and say you have a no mask policy and walk up to somebody who comes in and tell them to take their mask off. If you do that, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
Yeah.
And I'm good. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
okay.
I'm not even gonna dive into this one because
No.
I don't want to.
This is equivalent. This is like almost equivalent to those two guys in Arizona who took turns shooting each other with bulletproof vests. Remember that?
Yes.
Not Arizona,
Yes, I
Arkansas.
do.
Arkansas. Those always stand out to me as a Tater and D-Wayne
I think
story.
they were smarter.
Yeah, you're probably right. They at least had a
than the
bulletproof
store
vest.
owner.
Yeah,
At least
they were wearing
vests.
bulletproof masks or bulletproof vests, so they did have at least some protection on.
That
So,
will-
yeah, I think
That will always be one of my all-time favorite stories we've ever read on Horseshoes and Hand Grenades Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, or get it wherever podcasts are found.
Twitch TV. Two Dorks
Yeah,
TV. This channel.
TwoDorks.tv. Yeah, absolutely. Oklahoma, that's a state you don't hear about very often, is trying to get rid of $2 million worth of hydroxychloroquine. I'm grateful that we have heard hydroxychloroquine pronounced multiple times on TV over the last year, because I could say it in this article without tripping over it. Oklahoma is trying to get $2 million worth of the medicine that President Trump once touted as a treatment returned, thrown out. I don't know. I somehow ended that on a cliffhanger. The Oklahoma governor ordered 1.2 million pills, or 100,000 doses, from a wholesaler in April 2020. Ultimately, the drug was discredited as a treatment option for the virus, including by the National Institute of Health, which released a report in November saying the meds had no clinical benefit to hospitalized patients. It's unclear how much of the $2 million the state could recoup. The governor stated at the time that even if it turned out not to work against COVID, it did have plenty of other uses, and the money would have gone to waste anyway. So the buried line here is, the guy, sure, he used junk science to make a giant $2 million purchase. But it's quite possible it's like when you work for the state government and they hand you a Staples catalog at the end of the fiscal year and are like, buy whatever you want because we need to get our budget up to the limit. Or we're going to get $500,000 less next year and have to fire somebody. So knowing this is government, by saying it could have gone to waste anyway, he probably means this was at the end of the budget and we just needed to find a place to put it, or we might not get it next time.
Yeah, it's only because it's the hydroxychloroquine, and that's
Sure.
why it's making news.
And I'm looking at it from the optimistic benefit of the doubt place, which is
True.
I've been giving out a lot for no reason,
So
and to be let down.
I'm gonna pull you back down here because
do it.
what I think is interesting about this article, there are two things. Number one, that the NIH released their study in November, where it offered no clinical benefits to hospitalized patients after the election, and then the first week after Joe Biden takes office, that's when Oklahoma goes, we got a whole bunch of this shit laying around that was from the last administration. You want to go ahead and get rid of that? Yep, sounds good to me.
Wait, is this guy not governor anymore? Did they have a gubernatorial election?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question.
As that would make sense. I mean, there's lots of people with lupus. They need this to survive. They were the ones angry. They were touting it as they're like, I can't get my lupus meds because a bunch of idiots think this is going to save them from COVID. Along with
how are they trying to get rid of it? Are they trying to donate? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They were trying to get their money back for some of it, but they bought from a private wholesaler and not from another place that would have been more. They would have been able to recoup some of that cost. But this article was written all disjointed, so it was hard for me to grab out all the stuff that mattered. Again, to full disclosure to the audience, I summarized all these. So if anything's inaccurate, you can call me, staringatgoatspodcast@gmail.com. Steven, I read that article and you were wrong. It's fine. I can accept it. But Jacob, your story you have to read next is basically a CVS receipt. That's a long.
It is. It's a really long story, but I kind of want to go through it, and I'll break it down as the best I can.
Okay.
But as everybody knows, the Olympics were canceled last year. They were supposed to happen in Tokyo in the summer of 2020, but 2020 happened. So now they are going to come hell or high water. They are going to hold the Tokyo 2021 games. And they just announced today that here's the playbook that we're going to offer to all of our athletes, to all of the volunteers, to all of the people that are helping, the media, the broadcasters, all of the people. Here's our playbook on how we're going to handle COVID-19 in the 2021 Tokyo Games. So, Stephen, this is what they're going to have them do.
All right.
First, you got to wear your face mask at all times, whether you're, except for when you're eating, sleeping, or outside. If you're in any kind of ventilated room, you have to wear a face mask. The participants or the athletes have to limit physical contact and maintain 2 meters of distance. And everybody knows that the Olympics are pretty much, that's the code word for,
Brothel.
2-week hump fest.
Yeah. Orgy town.
But they need to avoid unnecessary forms of contact. So hugs, high fives, handshakes, scrogging, that kind of thing.
What if they
not allowed.
What if they use the glory hole method as described by New York State?
I bet that would be acceptable.
Okay. Just clear it. I want to make sure.
Look, I'll submit it and see if I get a response.
All right, thank you.
There you go. Okay, they can't use public transportation, so any participant can't travel like by bus or train or whatever. They have to quarantine for 14 days prior to traveling to Japan. They've got specific instructions about how they go through the airports. When they get there, they have to isolate for a certain number of days as well. During the actual games, they have to have their temperature checked every time they enter a venue. They have to report the results using an app so that everybody's got the same app. Let's see what else. They are encouraged. They're encouraged to get vaccines, but they're not required to get vaccines. I think they're letting athletes choose that. And no one respecting the rules may have an impact on the participation to the Olympics. So bottom line is, if you don't listen to us, you're not going to be able to participate.
It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Somebody high profile is going to get dumped. I know it. I'm calling it right now. It's going to be like Ryan Lochte's got his head so far up his rear end. He's going to be like, wait, what's a mask? Does he
He's trying to
compete
go
anymore?
back to 2021, Steven. He's definitely trying. He's like
He
38
was-
years old now.
He was hot stuff, and then he got on TV, and everybody went, "That guy's dumb as a post."
Mhm.
But it was fun. It was fun times when you could be like, "Wait, he does no brain in his head. He's just real good swim. He real good
Yeah.
swim." Ryan Lochte. I feel bad for the Olympic participants. I feel bad that they can't get all their humping on that they want to do, but I think life will find a way. Better question: Does this change the Olympic cadence, or is the plan to still be in 2024, despite having
I think
been
it
in
will go back to normal cadence.
Yeah, I feel like it should.
I would assume so.
It'll break my brain if we get off the divisible by 4 chain. That would just be terrible. Could you imagine 2025, 2029, 2034? Like, bleh.
No, you even got it wrong right there. It would be 2023.
See? I jacked it up.
2033.
I can't even do it. Can't even do
Oh
it.
boy. Nope. It's
Steven tries
hardwired
bad.
in you now.
Yeah, I can count 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. I got that. I'm a nerd. But counting by
Throw an
fours on an
odd
off
number in
number.
there.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Mm-mm.
You break Steven's brain.
Yeah,
if you
like a
throw an odd
drummer.
number at him.
You count to 4 and repeat. That's as good as you can do.
Oh, nice.
All right.
So the focus on COVID-19 facilitated spread of drug-resistant infections, is what experts are saying. The New York Times has cited an increase in outbreaks of drug-resistant bacteria due to the reuse and overuse of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Particularly concerning to health officials are growing cases of Canidia auris, a fungus the CDC calls a serious global health threat. Between October 2019 and November 2020, the number of C. auris, thank you for doing that, infections in the U.S. increased from 952 to 1,625, according to the data cited by the Times. That's a big jump. Seeing the world as a one pathogen world is really problematic, Dr. Susan Huang, an infectious disease specialist, said. We have every reason to believe that the problem has gotten worse. Before the pandemic, PPE was changed routinely to prevent the growth of drug resistant bacteria and fungi. Those protocols were largely abandoned given the scarce PPE supply when the pandemic hit. The demands of treating COVID-19 also led some hospitals and nursing homes to stop screening for the bacteria, leaving experts to believe that the true number of infections is higher than reported. The uptick can also be related to the increase in steroid use to treat COVID-19, as they can leave the immune system vulnerable to other infectious diseases. So we've been so focused on COVID-19, other crap is growing because we're not cleaning out PPE. So that's wonderful and frightening.
Yeah, it's good to know. I was talking
Well-
to Stephanie about this. She said C. auris is like a staph infection, or not staph, a yeast infection.
Yeast infection.
Yeah, it's a yeast infection.
Okay. But still, that's no good.
Yeah, that's no good, especially particularly drug resistant. That's terrible.
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot of drug resistant, both bacteria and fungus and lots of things going on right now. What I find is interesting is the use of hand sanitizers is accelerating this as well. The use of antibiotic ointments and antibiotic lotions, and that's accelerating it. But what's interesting though is that more people are less sick this year, so you're not taking the antibiotics as much. So I'm wondering if that's actually having an improvement on some of these, like Staph aureus, the MRSA, methicillin, the resistant version of Staph aureus, whatever that is, MRSA,
Yeah, MRSA.
MRSA. Yeah,
Yeah, I
but
don't
yeah,
know.
I'm curious because this starts me down a bunny trail here, and so now I'm curious to understand whether or not it's having an impact on just because of the PPE, or if it's because also the antibiotics, if it's not the reverse here.
So that we're not
Yeah,
doing antibiotics is causing a higher rate of
Yeah.
infections like this because people aren't getting a Z-Pack every time they go in with a sniffle.
Well, that, and we're not getting as many sniffles because, I mean, how many times has
Sure.
Sam been sick this year, right?
Zero.
How many times has he needed antibiotics this year? Zero. Therefore, we're just not ordering them as much. So I'd love to see how many doctors are prescribing some of these Z-Packs and some of these antibiotic packs, and whether or not that's truly helping these antibiotic resistant bacteria and antibiotic resistant bugs.
Yeah.
I'd be
Pretty
curious.
interesting. Yeah.
That is a good question, which we do not have the answer to. But
Mhm.
one of these days, we might. The superbug's coming, y'all. If anything, this pandemic has taught me, it's that we are going to die. If the superbug ever comes, there's no hope. Short of maybe we'll survive because we have a brain. We stay inside when there's a pandemic. But people, like, if it ever comes, it's like we ain't got no vaccine. The death rate 60%. Toast. It's a hoax. It's not real. Blah. Like, I want to have my Super. Speaking of Super Bowl, don't have a Super Bowl party. Don't have a Super Bowl party. It's on Sunday, and I've seen Wegmans advertise their Super Bowl party packs. I've seen people, the restaurants say, don't come in, have your Super Bowl party catered. Like, don't have a flippin' Super Bowl party. You psycho.
Yeah.
Like, stop it. I know these are things we use to get through winter so we can hang out together, but a Super Bowl party is not a good idea. If we see another uptick in 2 weeks after we finally leveled out from Christmas, it's going to be because of Super Bowl parties. And then people know it. People know it. Don't have a Super
Go
Bowl
watch
party.
TV's Travis on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
what you
this
do.
Sunday, because the Super Bowl is this coming Sunday, right?
Right.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Even if there was a Super Bowl party, I'm not going.
Right.
Because
Because you're busy. You
I've got
more
a show to
important things.
do, and it's my 100th episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't need to watch
an
the
important
Tom
one.
Brady show again.
No.
Who cares about that? Speaking of, is it Tom Brady? Is he the magic? Is he what gets people to Super Bowls? Have we determined that now? Is the data in?
I mean,
I don't know. It seems like it.
I don't
Yeah.
know. How about this? He's definitely been in a lot of Super Bowls. I
Yes,
think it was
that's
a
an
combination of him and
understatement.
Belichick. But look at just the most recent really good one, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning
Sure.
took Denver to a Super Bowl, 2 of them, won one of them, right?
Yeah.
After he left the Colts. So yeah, I think good quarterbacks are still good when they leave. I think that's
Yeah.
what this says.
Yeah.
And elite quarterbacks are what the teams really need to make it to the Super Bowl.
Peyton Manning would still be playing if not for his neck.
I
And
believe
his-
you're right.
His
sure.
neck was damaged largely because his forehead was so huge. It's
Yeah,
hard
he
to
was-
get
he
that
was
thing
struggling.
balanced. Hard to keep it
I gotta
where
tell
it
you.
needs to go.
When you have that much weight on those muscles back there, it
Yeah.
just it weakens.
Just to
It's-
hold
it's
that
just a bad
front
day.
part of your head up. It takes a lot. Anyway, deep dive, y'all. Let's get into it. Jacob, you wanted to chat.
did.
And this is vaguely political, but thank God it's not American politics.
Yes.
We're going across the pond to the EU and AstraZeneca, which is that a UK based, the AstraZeneca dealio?
They've got Brussels, I think, is where one of their facilities are, but UK is where their main facilities at.
And then what happened in the UK and the EU this year? Finally, after debate forever.
Was that? I vaguely remember something about this. It's
Yeah.
what was it? Brexit. That's
Something
what
to
it
do
was.
with breakfast.
Something about Brexit.
Oh,
Yeah,
Brexit,
yeah.
Brexit. That was it. That was it. That was the exit of the UK from the EU to stake their independence, yet still hold Scotland hostage.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
There was no back door introduced.
We want to be
No,
free, and
so-
Scotland's like, me too. And they're like, shut up, sit down.
So the EU is really pulling out all the stops to try to get vaccines, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this was really to introduce the next topic, which is going to be vaccine nationalism. But um, what had happened was all of the European Union decided, something, this AstraZeneca, that's onto something, and every country in the EU, including the other European countries like the UK, were negotiating with AstraZeneca, with Pfizer, with Moderna, and saying, "Look, can we go ahead and buy these vaccines?" But the EU bloc decided, no, 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 no. You guys, if you're in the EU, you can't negotiate with these companies. You have to wait until the European Union gets involved, and then we'll get involved and we'll take care of it for you, plebes. Do not take care of yourself. The European Union's going to take care of it. That didn't stop any of these other companies like the US, like Canada, like Japan, like the UK from negotiating with these companies on their own. So all of these companies signed a deal with all of those countries saying, we're going to get you this many vaccines. And then the EU bloc comes in months later and says, we'd like to negotiate prices with you. So they negotiated these prices down. They negotiated the liability terms of delivery. They negotiated all of these things, which took months, by the way. Finally, at the end of the summer, they started signing contracts with these companies. So now it comes time to for these companies to start delivering. And so they're delivering these vaccines. And, of course, the UK gets it first because they had the first contract, and the EU, the US, and Canada, and Japan, and all these other countries are starting to get theirs. Guess who's not really getting a whole lot? The EU. Guess who's pissed off about it? The EU. Guess who's pulling out
Luxembourg.
all? I know they're pulling out all the stops to try to make sure that they rob from Peter to pay Paul. So they're like, no, 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 no. Don't give those UK bastards vaccines. Give it to us. So they're talking about invoking articles in the Brexit agreement. They're talking about seizing assets that actually cross borders. They cross the UK borders. They're talking about having import-export regulations where you have to declare everything that leaves countries just because, and if there is, they could seize it and give it to their people. I mean, this is starting to become just an absolute riot to watch. And so the UK is going, look, we're not a part of y'all anymore. We get our vaccines. We signed a contract when we were supposed to. We paid full price. We're good here. We don't need you stealing our vaccines. So it starts raising the question, well, can the EU start doing this? Because if they're being made in Brussels, can they actually force Brussels not to deliver them to the UK or to the US or to Japan? And can they actually state, no, you can't cross borders. You have to leave it here and sell it to the people here before you sell it anywhere and export it and sell it anywhere else?
Boy, where do you even start with that? I mean,
I
That is,
know,
yeah.
right? This is ridiculous.
it is very ridiculous because it's like on one side, you want to say, well, these deals were negotiated and they should be following the deals that they've negotiated. And the other side, it's like, yeah, but then also we're trying to stop this pandemic from getting worse and get everybody vaccinated. So it's like, it's tough because, the EU shouldn't have drug its feet and it should have moved quicker, or let countries negotiate on their own. But that's not how they wanted to play. And now it's biting them. And oh boy.
Yeah, I don't even know how to start unwinding this ball of yarn. It seems like if they're enacting all these bylaws or whatever they've put into their agreement, that why are those things in the agreement? We didn't think we would need to use them.
Oh shoot! Well, here now we got to
Yeah.
use them, right?
Now we're using them. I don't know. It just sets up a real bad power struggle between the EU and the UK, and I think this is the first of many issues you're
Yeah.
going to see with that agreement as time goes on. I don't think this goes away quickly or easily. It was a rough breakup. There should have been a prenup in there. If we ever want to leave, here's what we're taking with us. And that been a done deal, but it wasn't that way. It took them months and months and months and two prime ministers to finally get to a resolution. And I don't. This is the first of.
Well, let's start off with another question. I guess the question I have for you guys is, if let's say a vaccine is made in the U.S. or the UK or the EU, and that vaccine is exported to, it doesn't matter where, you pick a country, Russia, China, South Africa, wherever. Should the citizens of the place where it's manufactured have better access than other countries?
Do you want to ask the Americans or do you want to ask the just general question? Because in America we believe in the free market, and as long as it suits us, I suppose. And my
Until
argument
GameStop
there,
comes around.
yeah, my argument there would be, well, they're the company; they can sell to whoever, wherever. All we can do is at best enforce America buy from the American company, but that's the most that we can really do. We can't stop them from selling to others. We can just enforce that we're going to buy from them. it does it becomes tribalism at that point, right? Like you get kind of we made it, so we'll get it first, and then we'll give it to other people. But that's also feels wrong somehow. But I come from a universe where you grow up being told to share with everybody, and then when you get old, they say don't share with everybody. What, are you crazy? It just seems.
I mean, there's no right answer here.
There
right?
isn't.
Because
I'm
you're either
dancing.
you're either screwing over the people in the place where it's being manufactured, or you're screwing over the people that have paid for or put the agreement in place to buy it somewhere else. And it's like, well, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be a problem if Brexit, one, hadn't occurred, but two, hadn't been the messy junk that it is.
But if it
I don't
hadn't
think it would be.
occurred,
I don't think it would be nearly the issue that it is if, well, for one, if the UK was still part of the EU, it wouldn't be nearly this issue. But even if they had left the union, but in a better way, and it hadn't been something that drug out forever and became this bureaucratic mess, it would still be an issue. But I don't think it would be as there wouldn't be as much posturing going on, and as much like, no, you need to do this, and now we're going to invoke these rules that we have in here that we can point to, type of thing. So I don't know.
I think I'm on the other end of that one. I think I am, because in my mind, I would say that Brexit only alerted us to the problem. I think the problem is much bigger, and I think we'd be ignoring it if Brexit didn't happen. But the problem is huge. What we're talking about here is vaccine nationalism. What we're talking about here is, because a vaccine is made in the EU or in the US, we now have access to it, right? If you look at it, 16% of the world's population are in some of these major developed countries that has gotten 60% of the vaccine so far. So most of the vaccines are just going to the rich countries. Most of the poor countries don't have access, or will get access whenever another one comes out that might be more cheaper, or might be more suitable for transport, or whatever it may be. I think the point here is that right now it's money talks and bullshit walks, and right now whoever's got the cash gets the vaccine, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong there either. That's sort of a different argument, but it's in the same ballpark still.
Well, I think what we're talking about here, in my mind, is about nationalism. We're not necessarily talking about, should they invoke import export. I mean, all of that is just noise
Mhm.
around the issue. The issue really is, do we take care of everybody as a whole? Do we take care of all people? Do we try to get everybody free access to these kind of vaccines, or
Mhm.
do we just make sure that we're taken care of and then worry about you other people later?
Well,
Right?
who polices that though? Who makes those policies? Who says X amount of vaccine needs to go to the Congo, or needs to go to Nicaragua, or needs to go to like some of these countries that are known to not be the powerhouses of economic whatever that some of these other ones are? What, there's not like we're not in the new world order yet, so there's no global power deciding you can't do that or you can't do this. Just other countries, and if the country's leadership doesn't get the vaccine for whatever reason, and it's not, and the company's like, here, we can make these contracts, and the country's like, F that, I'm not sick yet. You can't help leadership that does that. And you're relying on the charity of the other countries to make sure this happens, because seriously, this is a pandemic. It's in the best interest of the entire global society to make sure as many people on the
Everybody
planet
gets it.
have it.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing against that. I'm just trying to throw out logical, but we're tap dancing. Like, it's just hard to figure out like who to blame, really, which
Sure.
is not what I'm trying to do. But it's, if leadership can't get it, and then you're just waiting for charity, your charity's gonna come last. You're right. Money talks. Here's my cash. Give me my vaccines. Hey, I'm trying to give 50,000 vaccines to this small area in this one remote country. Cool, we'll get to you when we can. We'll put 10 of every 100 out off to the side and write it off. I mean, I don't know, man.
I mean, I guess I understand it. And the WHO, I think, is the one who would be responsible for vaccine distribution to poor countries. But my thought here is this, and I haven't really vetted these thoughts. This is just kind of an off the cuff thought. Um, if we're talking about a global pandemic and we're talking about 16% of the people within the world are getting the vaccine that's required, herd immunity is achieved by getting more people the vaccine, not less people the vaccine. And so if we're only starting with the nice little 16% of the population of the world, because those are the ones with the money, and then we're going to worry about the 88 or 84% of the world that doesn't necessarily have the same financial um, that has more of a financial restriction. This global pandemic's not going to end anytime sooner. It's going to take much longer to end because it's never going to get taken care of the way it should, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't disagree
Yeah.
with that at all.
Uh,
I think you're
it's
right.
in my mind, these are questions that are coming up and that I'm thinking through, and I'm trying to understand my position. And I haven't fully vetted this, thought about this position, but I almost feel like nationalism for vaccines specifically, uh, I'm leaning towards we should not have that mentality or that approach. That it shouldn't be 100% money driven. It should be also, there should be other aspects to it other than just money.
Mm-hmm.
There should be population density aspects. There should be rate of transmission aspects. There should be
Yeah.
a virulence of whatever viral strain is out there for that area. I mean, there should be other inputs into that decision. But right now, it's just all money, right?
I think that's a solid way to put it. All that extra data needs to be compiled to get to a proper distribution plan. And it can't just be like dollars to patients. It has to
Mhm.
be, I mean, and it's like North Carolina did. For better or for worse, they canceled a bunch of people's appointments and jammed all those vaccines into the Bank of America building in Charlotte because that was how they felt they could get the maximum efficacy, I guess, against the spread by putting it in a population center where it's been spreading poorly or bad, or I guess it's been spreading very well, and
Yes.
getting all those things into one place so they can vaccinate as many people that are being affected currently, and say, well, out there in the counties to the east, beach counties, we're not really seeing that much. Sure, they need the vaccine too, but the spread is low. So we'll prioritize them later. We're going to get over to
Yeah.
Charlotte, which the population is dense. There's a lot of people. We're going to move everything there. And I mean, that's just one state taking that approach. But if you had that global approach, you're right. It would be, diseases don't care about borders. We talked about that early on in the show. Nobody cares what color disease doesn't care what color you are, doesn't care what country you're from, doesn't care anything about that stuff. It cares that you've got cells that can infect, and that's what it's going to do. And if we treat it like it's the Chinese virus or it's the South African variant or it's the UK, and I know these are code names just to say where we saw it first, but there are people that take that and go, flipping South Africa's ruining it now. You know, like we shouldn't let people from South Africa in. And
The UK variants.
yeah,
And
UK's
UK
doing it.
British fools, they're giving us variants that are just awful.
The
And
good
nothing
news
to
is
do with-
that rhetoric is muted now more than it
It is.
was. I think it's still there, obviously, but it's not given the national platform that it had before to the vast majority of America, and I think that's making a difference. Slowly,
for
it'll
sure.
make a difference, but it's making a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think you're right. I feel like our approach is a little counterproductive from a clinical perspective.
Yeah.
If we truly want to take care of this, then we would approach it a slightly different way. But instead, it's who's got cash. Well, let's give it to them.
we don't
But
want to
yeah,
take care of
within
it.
an area,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, we've got cash. So yeah, we're gonna prioritize and do the right thing for this area. I mean, I was a casualty of one of those canceled
Yeah.
appointments, right? And I'm 100% fine with having my appointment canceled so that the people in Charlotte who are dealing with a hell of a lot worse than what we're dealing with right now can actually get vaccinated and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we took that approach worldwide in a global pandemic, we'd probably be a little bit better off. This is not an American pandemic.
Yeah, right. It's it's so tough though to like figure all that out and decide who gets what and when, you know, and,
Yeah,
and
oh,
to
yeah.
be altruistic about it and go, this is what happens because there's money at play. There's, but in the medical side of things is not what everybody goes to when dealing with anything that costs money. I don't go, oh, global pandemic. I'll pay all the money in the world just to make this. Jeff Bezos sitting on his pile of cash over there. Like, hey man, you want to help get that those billions could, like, I don't know, help other people somewhere? Nah, I'm just gonna use my tax loopholes. Peace out. Make spaceships. And the world got to keep turning. People got to keep doing what they're doing. But
yeah, and he'll make more money in 6 hours than you and I and Travis and everybody that's watching and listening to this show will make in their entire lifetime
combined.
6 hours.
Combined.
What does he make? 60 million in 6 hours?
It's something absolutely insane.
Silly
But
number.
as Lando has been careful to explain to us over the course of the Wall Street shenanigans, money is not real, and
right.
it has no purpose. And the global society is going to soon learn that all they need to do is raise some goats and love each other, and everything's going to be great.
Yep. Give each other one real big hug, and give goats hugs too, apparently.
And weed.
And weed.
Landon's plan involves weed. It's amazing when you spend time chat. Lando, who used to host this show, if you're not familiar, has become I imagine him now in a robe, sitting on a cliffside in Oregon, staring at the ocean and musing while texting me and Jacob. Just paragraphs in iMessages.
It got so bad that he wrote a note. He actually went into notes and sent us a link to his notes.
He sent us his notes, and it was like a 5-mile long blog post. Like, speaking of CVS receipts, this thing was a beast. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
I haven't made it that far in that note. I really want to read it because I'm very intrigued. But
A manifesto. It's a manifesto. I think he believes that we have ascended past what our Puritan ancestors believed the economy could be, to a global universe of sharing wisdom. And I hate to tell him, but I don't know that we're there yet, bud. I think you're smoking the ganja on the West Coast, and I bet you are close to that there, but not here.
Steven, I think my comment to him was, man, you got to send me a care package, because whatever it is that you've got, you need to send to me, because I need to be
want
on
some
the
of
same
that. Holy
Yeah.
hell.
Gotta get something. You gotta get some to Travis too. Everybody's gonna need what Landon's got. But man, that was a heavy deep dive, but it was a good one.
It was.
It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and I don't think any of us have real answers. But if you have real answers, you out there in listener land playing along at home, email us at staringatgoatspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear what you think about all the things that we talked about tonight. I think it would be good for us to get some extra perspective. So if you've got one, throw it our way. Travis, what's our number if they want to call and leave us a voicemail?
Our number is, I have it right here.
Of course he does. He was
front of
totally
me.
prepared.
Right. It's 231-486-5401. Call us, leave us a voicemail. Let us know what you think. Do you love the show? Do you hate my purple hair? Do you want a different goat camera in the background? Let us know. We want to hear. We want to hear from you.
And you can also tell me that I'm wrong. So
Sure.
if I'm wrong on my thoughts, please, I'd love to hear a different opinion. So let me hear it, because I want to be told I'm wrong.
231-486-5401. That's the number.
486. I'm writing it down. 231-486-5401.
That is it.
I got it. That way I can put it in the show notes. Yeah, so call me maybe. Thank you, Smash. All right. Yeah, this has been good, you guys. Thanks again. Email us staringatgoatspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, give us a review on your favorite podcasting service. 5 stars. Say you had fun. Follow us on Twitter at staring_goats. Really, that's just for sending us questions that are 240 characters or less, which we'd love to answer. If you want to get with us on Twitter, I'm Steve H&H. TV's Travis is TV's Travis. And you can find us both there. Jacob's the sensible one who doesn't have it. Thank goodness. twodorks.net/support is how you support the show, and you can join our patrons, Hammerdorf, Jesse, Og, Adam, and Christina of Geekheim, Oddly Normal One, and our parents, who proudly support the show. Means the world to us when you do that. We appreciate it more than you know. If you want to just tip us once, twodorks.net/tip is the way to do that. And it certainly serves the show a little bit. And with that, man, we will see you back next week for more COVID talk. Later, y'all.
Man.
There we go. Got him. Got him.
Another one in the can.
We done did it. We done did it. Good show, guys. Good show. Good show. I've